Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's presentation, Don't Let Data Push You Around, Introduction to ADF Active Data Services, presented by John Klein, founder with 24 years of information management experience, and Adam Stortz, technical team lead with 10 years of information management experience. We'll be taking some Q&A at the end of today's presentation. If you have any questions, we ask that you please send them via the Q&A function to the webinar host using your webinar control panel, and we'll answer them, as many of them as we can, at the end of the presentation. And with that quick introduction, thank you everyone again for joining us, and I'll hand the floor over to you to begin today's presentation, John and Adam.
Thank you very much. Good day, everyone. It's nice to be with you. Today's presentation, Don't Let Data Push You Around, an introduction to ADF Active Data Services. Again, my name is John Klein, founder of Redstone Content Solutions, and with me today is technical team lead Adam Stortz. Here is our agenda today. We'll start with a very brief Redstone overview. We'll talk a little bit about our extensive web center expertise. And then we will talk a little bit about ADF. We have an ADF product offering called Content Synergy Hub that we'll talk a little bit about. I'll turn this presentation over then to Adam to give an ADF active data demonstration. And then we'll wrap up today's presentation with a special offer. A little bit about Redstone. We focus solely on Oracle Web Center products and services. We support no other software manufacturer other than Oracle. We work on advancing Oracle Web Center every day. We have extensive Web Center experience. We employ staff that started the Stellent Channel Partner Program in 1998. And as such, we've been working with the Stellent technology since version 3 of the product. We're known for our technical competency. We work with Oracle Product Management to beta test new releases of the software. Recent examples include the 11G version of Web Center Content, Site Studio versions 10GR3 and 10GR4, and most recently, the new Web Center Content ADF-based user interface. We have a very collaborative team environment whereby the collective wisdom of all staff is made available to clients when they hire us. We're known for our financial strength. Cash management, financial advisors, and banking relationships have helped us grow and thrive even during the Great Recession. We have become a premier Web Center content training provider based upon our annual training survey results. As you might expect, we are specialized both in ADF and Web Center content. We have proven performance and a solid reputation. We tend to build long-term relationships with clients. As such, they come back to us time and time again. Many of our client relationships have been in place for a number of years. And we're committed to the long-term success of our clients. That is very, very important to us. And we really work to understand the needs of our clients and build these long-term relationships. Our relationships, though, extend to others, Oracle and partners as well. We can provide multiple references across a wide variety of industries. We have a very high customer satisfaction for our product training offering, and we survey clients after each engagement, both from a consulting services and training perspective. Here's a little bit about our core competencies. Our full complement of Web Center content products and services is unique in the Oracle partner community. We offer consulting services, both from a strategy as well as a project-based and staff augmentation perspective. Consulting services to us is creating a project-based statement of work, where a project has a defined beginning, middle, and end. And staff augmentation is where we'll be hired by a particular client to provide some level of subject matter expertise. Strategy to us is helping our prospects and clients understand the value and potential of their Oracle software investment. From a web center development and support perspective, we get involved with installation of the products, upgrades from one version to the most recent version, component development, portlet development, and integrations with back office and front office systems. Relative to product training, we have three offerings in this regard: customized, advanced training, and traditional training. Customized classes are our specialty, where we collaborate with the client on the actual development of the curriculum. This makes up about 85% of our business. Advanced classes are specifically targeted to each company's key personnel, where we assist in taking them to the next level of knowledge and competence. This makes up about 10% of our training business. And lastly, traditional classes make up about 5% of our training offering. These are our core values. We conduct business and build long-term relationships based upon these four core values. The first one is character: integrity, honesty, and hard work in everything that we do. We value integrity, honesty, and hard work. We place the customer at the center of all that we do, and when we make a commitment, we work tirelessly to live up to the inherent promise that we have made. We do what we say with honesty, respect, and total transparency. Redstone values talented professionals that have a strong desire to create something truly unique, which previously did not exist. When you build a career at Redstone, you will have no doubt that your hard work is impacting the valued customers that you serve. Core value number 2 is unity. The collective wisdom of staff is available to all. Our industry is fast-paced and ever-evolving. No one employee can know or is expected to know every intricacy of our industry, our clients, or the technologies that we resell, implement, and support. We combine our expertise and collaborate in order to provide clients with the best possible experience and outcome. Education. Knowledge is the key differentiator. Redstone is committed to developing the professionals that make up our organization. Our team of experts differentiates Redstone from the competition as we strive to earn a reputation of technical competence and mastery. We believe in the constant pursuit of knowledge and are keenly aware that complacency leads to mediocrity. We will be more intuitive and provide greater value tomorrow than we do today. Our clients deserve this of us, and we demand it of ourselves. And lastly, innovation. We create and define our industry every day. We partner with creative, intelligent individuals and innovative companies. The issues that we solve for our clients provide a compelling ROI and significantly improve business practices. Redstone is on the cutting edge of enterprise content management, portal, web experience management, and custom training. We don't simply rely on what others in the field have developed and implemented. We continually create, modify, and on occasion rebuild the market foundation while defining the future of enterprise software development. Our clients look to us for creativity, innovation, proven solutions, and the like. Our territory, we really have no territory restriction. We have established repeat customers in the Midwest, on both coasts, Canada, Mexico, in England, Denmark, and many more. Web Center content training. What makes this unique is all of our trainers are actual consultants with years of actual field experience. we provide customized curriculum at no additional cost. We feel that everybody wants customized training, but some think that they can't afford it. We eliminate that roadblock by creating an individual curriculum, even down to the line item for our training classes. This is truly presented in a hands-on experience. We create production instances of the software for all class participants in the cloud. And we have our own methodology for training. It's called the 3T methodology, which stands for train, try, and test. We will lay out a concept in class. We'll then turn the keys over to each class participant to try out exactly what we've tried to teach and have those folks put their hands on the keyboard. And then from a testing perspective, we have the ability to test these folks on actual knowledge retention. And again, then, we provide a customized manual as well as videos that are shown during class, are then at the end of class given to all class participants to be used by the entire organization as a whole. Here's our most recent annual survey results. These are from the curriculum perspective. So after every single class, we hand out a training survey. And this is our cumulative results over the last 12 months. I'm pleased to say that 100% of all class participants that returned surveys in the last 12 months rated the overall value of the curriculum as good or excellent. And here's the piece relative to the instructor. Again, 100% of all class participants that returned surveys rated the overall value of the instructor as good or excellent. This is our ADF product offering. It's called Content Synergy Hub. The Hub is a tool for rapid development and deployment of repeatable processes that are triggered by events. Each process consists of a series of reusable custom actions that each perform a specific task and are written in Groovy using a domain-specific language. Events that trigger the process include file system events, new email in an inbox, a new chat message, new messages showing up in a JMS queue, and many more. While it can be used to replicate a wide variety of event-triggered programs, it is especially well-suited to handle programs that watch for files and then do some work on them before checking in the file and metadata into the content server. It not only comes pre-made with action definitions to do many of those tasks, it has an engine that allows one to quickly write and deploy their own scripts for such tasks. Since it is built on Groovy, any Java library can be imported and used by Content Synergy Hub. The tool already comes with the Jersey API, Java Mail API, and Remote Introdoc Client API loaded into it. Emerson Process Management uses the Content Synergy Hub. Emerson had created 20 or more custom file batch loaders to process and import content, both files and metadata, from enterprise systems into Web Center content. Support, maintenance, and needed development had become cumbersome as each of the batch loaders had been constructed using a different technology set, some of which were no longer supported themselves. Emerson's content management initiatives had also become more global in nature. As such, the need to create additional batch loaders was growing. The time had come to standardize on a common, modern, and supported solution. Sitting atop a WebLogic server, the Content Synergy Hub has replaced Emerson's custom batch loaders. With that now, I'll turn the presentation over to Adam. Adam?
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. This is a brief agenda of what we're going to talk about today. We're going to go over our goals for the solution that we are trying to develop, options that we have in how we can approach that solution. And then we're going to go over the lighter weight solution of the different options that we've talked about. Then we're actually going to go through a demonstration. I've implemented that lightweight solution. We'll talk about it. We'll show you the different pieces and how we build that. Then we're going to talk about some of the limitations in this solution, and then I'll give you some references. So the goals, pretty simple, really. We're going to try to reflect real-time changes in the UI. So as someone makes a change through an edit form on another page, we'd like to see those changes in front of the user. And specifically, we'd like that to not require any sort of interaction from the user. So as someone is watching a table, if a change has been made to the data, we'd like that table to update to reflect that change real time without the user doing anything to see that change. So those are our goals. Options. Basically, there are two main ways of achieving this. Number one is to go through SOA Suite. SOA Suite is quote-unquote the right answer, so to speak. An alternative approach would be the Active Data Proxy. So let's talk real quick. This diagram on the right here is from the documentation, and it shows a little bit about what those two approaches would look like. So over here on the right-hand side, in the ADF diagram, we have the Business Activity Monitor, BAM, over here, going up through the ADF Faces binding layer, and then showing up in the model, and then therefore being exposed through ADF Faces Rich Client via the Event Manager. This is going to be the preferred solution. However, that may not always be an option. Not everyone has SOA Suite, so I wanted to look at the alternative to that. SOA Suite implements what's called an active data model out of the box. So wiring it up to SOA Suite is very simple. We essentially point it at a SOA Suite data source and drop our components on the page, and everything just sort of works. Now, the Active Data Proxy approach is a little different. This is going to be the approach that you would need to use if you didn't have something like SOA Suite at your disposal. Now, one thing that, if you're interested in this, I would encourage you to read the documentation pretty thoroughly. One thing that you'll notice in the documentation is that if you don't read the whole thing, it'll suggest that you can't do active data services with ADF BC directly. Now, if you read the whole documentation, you'll notice there's a couple of caveats to that. And basically what it says is you can't do it with the ADF BC without the Active Data Service Proxy. So that's what we're going to walk through today, is how to get over that particular hump. So the lightweight solution. So this is the Active Data Service Proxy. So how do we do this? Well, first thing we have to do is select an active data component. There's a subset of the components in ADF Faces that support active data, and we'll go over those in a moment. Next, we have to actually implement the proxy. That's something I'll show you all the code required to do that as well. And once we have the proxy in place, we have to actually implement the code to raise the events. The other thing that I left out of this list that is sort of implied that I'll note here is that once we raise the events to actually get the UI to respond to those events, we have to wire the UI up to the Active Data Proxy itself instead of to the original bindings. But we'll go over that here in a minute. So selecting an active data component. This is the basic list of active data components that are out there right now. There's the active command toolbar button, active image, active output text, tables, trees, tree tables, and then a number of the data visualization toolkit components like graphs, gauges, and geographical maps. The implementation I'm going to show you today is we've chosen to use a table. The same basic concepts could be applied to any of these components except for the data visualization components. Those require a slight difference in the approach to implementation, and I will point that out when we get to it. So the next step that we'll have to go through is implementing the Active Data Proxy. To do that, we have to extend the base active data model. I'll show you what ours looks like. That's a pretty basic class. all that really does is sort of wrap our actual data and register and unregister our listeners and keep track of them. Then there's the Active Collection Model Decorator. Now this Active Collection Model Decorator is the thing I referenced in the previous page. This is where our implementation would differ depending on what active component we were going to use. If we were going to use some of the data visualization components, we would not use the Active Collection Model Decorator. We would use things like the Active Data Model Decorator, which is for graphs, or the Active GeoMap Data Model Decorator, that would be for the mapping components. Or we could use the Active Gauge Data Model Decorator, that would be for the gauge-specific implementation. Now that we've implemented our base Active Data Model, we've extended our Active Data Model Decorator, or Collection Model Decorator rather. Then it would be time to expose our new Active Collection Model Decorator as a managed bean so that it could be consumed by our pages. Then we need to implement the code to raise our events. So we would take that managed bean that we've built, our Active Collection Model Decorator, and we would make some updates to it so that it would raise events and it would pass those events to our base Active Data Model, this first class that I referenced, the base Active Data Model. So that thing is going to be responsible for raising those events so that the event tier can spread those out and pass them to all the registered listeners. Then we're going to have to bind the edit page to our managed bean, and I left out, we also need to bind our list page to the managed bean as well. So with that, we're going to go ahead and dig into our demo. Okay, so this is JDeveloper 11GR2. This is going to be the base for our application. The first thing we need to do to implement this is we need to configure ADF to expose the ADS services. So to do that, we dig into our ADF config, and we have to add a namespace. So in here, this is my solution. I'm not actually going to implement this live. I've already implemented, so I'm just going to show you my solution. We have to add a namespace for ADS. So we go up here and we drop this into the opening tag of our XML document. That allows us to configure ADS. Now this is not expressly required because ADS has defaults. So we don't need to do this, but it's important because we want to be able to configure it. So once we drop that in here, then we can actually control the behavior of ADS. So here is the section of the config that controls that. So the first part is the transport. We've selected streaming. So one of the big value of this is what we talked about earlier in our goals. We want to push real-time updates to the client. The only way to do that is if this transport is set to streaming. The other options are polling and long polling, and that works just how you might think. It actually polls the server for updates instead of streaming. So we would, in this scenario, like I said before, we want to push it, so streaming is our preferred approach. The latency threshold, that's the next one here. So these are all currently the defaults that you see here, but you can set your own as needed. So this one, the latency threshold is set in milliseconds, and it sets the threshold in which the messages sent from ADS will be treated as quote-unquote late. So ADS pushes information. It's always pushing information to the listeners, telling it, here's an update, or I'm still alive, but I don't have an update. So if an update shows up and it's outside of this threshold of half a second, it's going to be treated as late and therefore ignored. The keep alive interval. This is the frequency in milliseconds for sending that keep alive message. So I said, sometimes it will say, I don't have any updates for you, but I am still here. That's what this is. This says every 10 seconds, send a ping to the listener to say, hey, I'm still alive. So what it's going to do is every 10 seconds, it's going to send that keep alive message, and that message needs to arrive within 5 seconds. The max reconnect attempt. So if the keep alive interval, for example, passes and it sends that message, but that message is outside of this half-second latency threshold, then it's going to try to reconnect because it's going to treat that message as late and ignore it, and it's going to act as though the connection is stale. So what it's going to try to do is reconnect to the server to open a new stream. So right now it's configured to wait 90 seconds or 90,000 milliseconds in an attempt to reconnect before it decides that the connection is in fact truly dead. And then as it will reconnect, it will attempt to reconnect a certain number of times. Each time that it attempts to reconnect and fails, it will wait 8,000 milliseconds or 8 seconds between attempts before trying again. So this is really important stuff right here. Depending on the number of users that you have, actively watching data, this can really affect the performance of your system. So this is a great piece. I spent a lot of time on this because I think it's valuable to understand because this can greatly impact the performance of your system. So next we're going to talk about implementing our data model. So first of all, before I dig into that, I'm just going to show you real quick. We have a really basic model behind the scenes here. We have a department's view. That's the only thing we're actually paying attention to. And it only has four attributes. So it has an ID, a name, a manager ID, and a location ID. So a really simple data model here. We're just going to be watching the departments in a table, and then we're going to have another user come in, make a change, and we'll see that update in the table. And our actual application only has these two pages. The departments page is our list page. It shows the table of departments, and the edit department page is simply exactly that. It's a small edit form that will wire up to send the events through ADS. So to do that, we have to actually write the code to implement the Active Data Service Proxy. So the first thing we need to look at is our Department Active Data Model. So this is the thing that handles registering and unregistering our listeners. So this implements or extends the base active data model. That's what I talked about earlier on. And we have two atomic integers. We chose atomic integers so it would be thread safe. And the listener count is used to track how many registered listeners we have. The change count is used to track the unhandled data changes. So as a change comes in, we bump this number so that we know how many changes have not been broadcast to our listeners. We overrode a couple of methods here. There's a start active data. This is exactly what it sounds like. This is basically a listener coming in and saying, hey, I'm watching for active data, so I'm firing up a new listener. So what we do is we just print out a simple command, message to the console, and then we increment our listener account so that we can track that. The stop active data does the exact opposite of that. A listener has closed their browser. They're no longer watching the active data. We tear down our streamer so that we're not streaming data to a client who's not listening anymore. We decrement the number of listeners, and we print it. And if we reach the end of our listeners, so we have nobody else watching for data changes, then we just print another message out to the console so we can see that. The rest of this class is all convenience methods for use outside of this class. So we want to be able to get the current change count somewhere else. We want to be able to bump that change count from somewhere else. And we want to be able to fire an active data event. So this fire active data event, you'll notice it's calling this fire active data update method. This method is not accessible to classes outside of this class. So we wrapped it in this little convenience method to allow us to pass in events and fire them so that all of our listeners can pick them up. So this is just a convenience method to circumvent some of the scoping that's going on in the base class that we've extended. The next step is to implement our decorator. So the Department Active Collection Model decorator is the next piece of the puzzle. So the first method that we're going to look at in here is the get collection model. So there's a couple of things up here that are just convenience and state management. Get collection model is where it starts to get interesting. This get collection model wraps the ADF bindings and caches the model. So what we see here is we have a local model that we maintain for states. If that is null, so the first request that comes in and looks for is going to be null, then we go out and grab the model. If not, we just return our cached version. So to get that, we reach out to the faces context, we get the expression library, or expression factory, and we build an expression language string. So this expression language is looking at the bindings, grabbing the department's view 1, and grabbing the collection model from that. So this is what would normally be in the binding for the table that is looking at the data. And so we'll see what we did to change that in a minute. Then we execute that expression, get back the model, cache it, and then we return it. The next method is to trigger the data change. So this is where the meat of this thing really happens. So we reach into our active data model, we bump our change count, so that we saw that a minute ago. So we say, hey, we've got a new change. Right now, this is written specifically to handle updates. This can handle updates, deletes, and inserts as well. So we're focused on updates just to keep this very simple. We get the current change count out, and then we do this key path thing. So one of the things that's important here is the key that's in the database. We need to take that and convert it to the key path that represents where this object is on the table on the page. So that's what this is doing. There's a little convenience method that's written for you in the ADF library in this JVO Active Data Event Util class that allows us to make that conversion very easily just by passing the key to the object in question. Then we have to build a couple of arrays. So those arrays are which fields changed and what they changed to. In our example, we are focusing specifically on the department name, so you could expand on this quite a bit and make it much more dynamic to support other fields. But we're only focusing on one, again, for the sake of simplicity. Then we build the actual event. So the event we need to raise is called an Active Data Update event. And there's another convenience method on the Active Data Event Util class that allows us to build that. So what do we pass in here? We pass in the change type, which we said was update. We pass in the change count, so the thing that we're tracking to make sure that that the event handlers are aware of how many events they need to process. The key path, so where in the table should this event be propagated to? I don't recall off the top of my head what this null is. I think it's used for the other types of events, insert and delete, but I don't recall off the top of my head. Change fields, so again, what fields changed and what did they change to? And then we reach into our active data model one more time and we say, go ahead and fire that event. Pretty straightforward. Now, the next thing that we need to do is give our page a way to actually raise this event. So we have a trigger data change method, but there's nothing that calls it. So how do we do that? Well, we write this little method here that's an action listener, and this is going to be what sits behind the submit button on our edit page. So we'll take that submit button and we'll wire it up to this here in a moment. So we'll see that here in a second. So what it does is it gets a hold of, again, we reach into the bindings, we get a hold of the value, we get the current row out of the departments that has been changed. So we know that the one that they're looking at is the one that changed. And we reach back and we grab the department name out of it, and then we trigger our data change by passing the key and the name. So that calls our data change method up here, passing the values required to build out the event and fire it. So the next step that we need to look at is our actual pages. So since we just got done talking about the edit, we'll take a look at that first. It's a simple form, just a handful of inputs, some buttons for navigation, and then here, this button down here at the bottom is the one that's important. So it calls the departments bean .handle submit. So handle submit, that's the last method that we talked about. And departments bean. Okay, so how is departments being registered? Well, let's go to our ADFC config and we'll look at our managed beans. And here it is. Now, for simplicity, I've scoped this to application. In a real application, you probably wouldn't want to do that, but there are some hurdles that we would have to clear to make it work in a non-application scoped bean. And so, again, trying to prove out the concept, we've scoped it to application for simplicity. So that's how our bean is registered. It's department's bean, and it is our department active collection model decorator. So that's how we trace this command button back to our method handle submit. The last page we need to look at is departments. A very simple table here with only 3 columns in it. And the interesting piece here is the value. Normally, this would be bound to our bindings, departments view 1, right? That's what we saw in our active collection model decorator. If we go back here and we see bindings.departments view 1, that's what you would normally expect to see in our binding for the table. But since we are proxying that, we're stepping in between the table and the data itself, We have swapped this out. We still have our bindings because we use that in our backing bean, our managed bean, but the value for the table is now bound to departments bean itself. So the bean as a whole is now our collection model, the model for the data in the table. So now that we've talked about the implementation as a whole, it's time to actually see it run. So I'm going to go ahead and fire up Chrome. Oops. It appears as though my application is getting tired, so I'm going to rerun it. I'll just refire up WebLogic here. Sorry, everybody, I had this running, and something has happened while it was waiting for me, and now it's no longer ready to operate. All right. Okay, let's try this again. Okay. So our browser's coming up here. It's making a request to our departments page, and in the background we see that it printed out our little setup message, which is what we expected, and that's what that's telling us is that our listener is now registered and listening. So and it's interesting in Chrome, I chose Chrome in particular, because you see it looks like it's still loading. What that is Chrome is showing you that it's still, that stream is still open to the back-end server, so we know it's watching, so it's important information. I'm going to fire Firefox, and now we're going to see what's essentially a different user in a different session making changes to our data. So now, I'll just change administration from administration 1, 2, 3, 4 to just administration, and when I click submit, we'll see this little box here will flash blue, and our data will change. So we can do that. We'll go over here to purchasing. We'll clean that up too. It looks like somebody made some data changes that weren't very good. And now we've seen the entire thing from front to back. All of this data, as I'm making changes, are getting intercepted by our proxy. The event is being raised and pushed down to all of the registered listeners. With that, that concludes our demonstration. And I will hand it, I need to go over a few more things here. So, limitations. Limitations are essentially that anything that is done dynamically, not going to work. So in short, if you're doing PPR, if you're adding components through PPR, that's not going to work with Active Data Services. Similarly, anything invoked from a task flow call activity, so not in a task flow, but in a task flow call, not going to work either because those things are added to the page dynamically. We used a table. Tables have a number of restrictions for active data, including you can't filter, you can't sort. The list is pretty extensive. It's also in the documentation. So the point here is this is a very limited use case. You need to be very careful with it. Pop-up blockers are going to get in the way. I already mentioned filtering on the tables. And certain browsers also have issues. So Chrome, if I opened another tab in Chrome, it would have actually broken that active data stream. So things to pay attention to. A more detailed example, when we started putting together this demonstration and we started working with Avnet, I'm a member of the ADF Enterprise Methodology Group, And a colleague of ours, Chad Thompson, posted out there and said, hey, anybody out there want to come see this? We're putting on this nice presentation. And a gentleman by the name of Jan Vervecken, who's pretty well known in the community, posted these things here, commenting on the fact that he's tried this in the past and run into some issues and has received some messages from Oracle Product Management, specifically Frank Nymphius, about how this works and how and whether or not it's supported. So these are some good articles to take a look at. Jan's got a couple of screencasts here with much more detailed examples than what I've provided, including things that go all the way down to the database level using Oracle database notifications, change notifications, propagating those all the way up through the ADF BC tier and to the UI. So a much more complete example than what I've produced. So very good examples. Now the issue here is that support, Frank Nymphius notes that support for active data services against ADF bindings is not expressly supported in that your custom logic will not be used. So that's an important piece here. Since the events are simply raising an event that tells the UI, hey, this piece of data changed, that is not going to apply your business logic or your custom security rules that will filter out certain pieces of information. So for example, if I was displaying employee data and someone moved from one department to another and changed their salary because they got an upgrade or a promotion, their old manager maybe shouldn't see their new salary, but if they're sitting there watching that active data table, they will see it unless you are very careful about the way you implement that. So that's why it's not supported, is that your custom logic is not going to be applied. So it's a very specific use case, and if you understand that particular limitation, there are no concerns there. And here are my references. Oracle documentation, very good, very verbose, but also very good. And a number of other people, including Frank Nymphius that I mentioned before, Matthias Wiesendorf, and Edwin Bymund have some very good blog posts out there that talk a lot about it. And with that, I will hand it back over to John to wrap this up.
Here's a few opportunities to get in touch with Redstone via our website, blog, Facebook, and the like. And one last thing we'd like to point out before we'll take questions is we invite you to the URL link listed on this slide. Here we post a number of no-cost downloads. There's custom components we've looked out over the years and have tried to better the Web Center community. Our goal here is to understand some common problems that folks run into and then create a custom component and make it available at no cost via our website. Some specific examples of components that are out there are things like the remote meta update, the alphabetized menu, Groovy scripts are out there, end user jQuery sample. We've got a number of presentations as well as documentation. We're a big promoter of the industry community. For example, we were at Collaborate 13 in Denver last month, and you will find our white papers and abstracts on the site for the 7 presentations that were given at Collaborate. So Julie, we have about 10 minutes left. We would love to entertain some questions about Adam's presentation or Redstone. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, John and Adam, for that great presentation. It doesn't look like we've had any questions come through yet. Just a reminder, if you do have any questions, go ahead and submit those through the Q&A box located in your webinar control panel. And we'll just give a couple seconds for anyone to do so. All right, it doesn't look like anyone has any questions, so that will conclude today's presentation. On behalf of Oracle and Redstone Content Solutions and our speakers today, we'd like to thank you for joining and hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.